Hi everyone, it's James from MLR Stats and NARugbyDB.com, back for my 2025 Major League Rugby Western Conference predictions. This is following on from my video a couple of days ago on my predictions for the Eastern Conference. If you haven't seen that, then please go check it out on the channel. This video is going to cover the other side of the league in the West. Now, the Western Conference has only the 5 teams rather than the 6 in the East. Unfortunately, we have an odd number of teams this season. Sorry, Dallas. But 4 teams will still qualify, so really it's only the 1 team that's missing out on the playoffs in the Western Conference. Like with my Eastern Conference video, I'm going to go from 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, so from the bottom up, predicting kind of where I think each team is going to finish based on their off-season, their roster moves, their departures and additions, where they finished in 2024, bit of kind of just general vibes I get from the team. I'm not going to go into kind of wins and losses or points, but just kind of where I think each team is going to finish, and a little bit of reasoning as to why that is. So, with all that spiel out of the way, let's get right into it with 5th place in the Western Conference. The only team missing out on the MLR playoffs in the Western Conference, finishing in 5th, I predict will be the Utah Warriors. Now, Utah are in a bit of a strange position. They didn't have a great 2024. They had some standout players, which we'll get into in a second, but their season wasn't very great. They ended with a 5-11 record. Funnily enough, they finished with a 5-11 record before in 2022, where they scored 424 points total. In 2024, with a 5-11 record, they scored 424 points, which is just doesn't really have any bearing on what they're going to do in 2025, but I thought that was just a remarkable coincidence. But what we're seeing from this Utah side from 2024 to 2025 is sort of a continuation of what feels like a real total rebuild. So Greg Cooper is going to have more of a stamp on this team. It's going to have more of his kind of fingerprints all over it. And let's not forget, the Utah Warriors began the 2024-2025 MLR offseason by announcing 17 departures. They started the offseason by essentially just wiping the team away and starting it from fresh. Now, I mentioned they did have some standouts in 2024. The likes of Dylan Nell and Frank LaCour. Frank LaCour finished 2nd in tackles, only one of 2 players to finish above 200 tackles in 2024. Dylan Nell, just the 2nd player in MLR history to record over 30 tackles in a single game. The Warriors had to make a lot of tackles in 2024. Both those guys are back, which is fantastic news. They were both brilliant. Unfortunately, a couple more of those standouts for the Warriors are not returning. First of all, Caleb McInerney, longtime Warrior at this point, always a top performer in the team, is not returning. Now, it was announced that he signed with NOLA, but turns out that he's actually going to remain in New Zealand for the birth of his child, him and his partner's first child, which is, I guess, as excuses go, is pretty fair. Wishing them both all the best with that. The biggest loss, probably, for the Utah Warriors is Michael Manson. He was an absolute try-scoring machine in 2024. 14 tries in just 12 games. Almost finished as the league's top meter eater in significantly fewer games. He just chewed up defenses. Absolute monster. Unfortunately, he stood out a bit too much and was offered a Super Rugby contract. My understanding is that he was actually signed for the Utah Warriors again this season. But when Super Rugby comes knocking, you answer the door. Like I said, they do have a couple more standouts returning. They do have picked up a couple of pieces from the Dallas Jackals, as most teams did, like former Toronto Arrow Nick Benn, along with Ronnie McElligott from the Jackals. And Nick Benn will actually join up with Tyler Wong as well as Spencer Jones as former Arrows. Hopefully Spencer Jones is fully recovered from that injury and we'll see a lot more of him on the field for the Warriors. Unfortunately, I think Utah have undergone so much turnover in what is relatively short span of time that I don't know how well this team is going to perform on the field. Now, that isn't to say I don't think they're going to go 0-16 or anything like that, but I don't think they'll be able to really push for that playoff spot against what is unfortunately four really solid teams in the Western Conference this year. And I really just think they're the odd one out, I'm afraid. Moving up to fourth place in the Western Conference and the first playoff spot, I have Rugby FC LA. Now, they probably had the busiest, probably the most impressive, or the most talked about off-season in the league. They also probably have the fewest returning players in Major League Rugby. So let's just go through some of the players that are departing. The likes of James Stokes, Premiership centre, Ben Mitchell, their 2024 captain, Niall Saunders, Brazilian international front row, Wilton Rebolo, the fly half kind of trio of Jason Emery, Dan Hollinshead, and Jordan Chait. All three of those are not returning. Jason Emery is actually playing on the Eastern Conference for DC. They're losing a lot of guys. But the guys they're bringing in is sensational. Back-to-back back of the year, Billy Meeks returns to LA. Reigning back of the year, Reece McDonald moves from coast to coast from the Free Jacks to LA in what was probably the highest profile move of the off-season. They've got picking up Vaughan Isaacs from the Dallas Shackles. They're picking up Lucas Burr to go alongside him from the Shackles. Christian Dyer, USA Eagle and California native. Christian Dyer, the quality of players they're bringing in is unbelievable. My concern there is that's a lot of new pieces, and are they going to really gel in time? It might take them 6-7 weeks to really get into their stride, especially when you consider this is also under a new head coach in Stephen Hoyles, an entire new coaching team, in fact, with Steve Hoyles, Sam Harris, and former Giltinis captain Dave Dennis returning. Steve Hoyles also former Giltinis. LA is very Giltinis tinted this season. And I think that the danger of LA not getting up to speed quite fast enough is because of the amount of turnover, similar to the Utah Warriors problem. I just think RFCLA have so much quality and known quality coming in, unlike the Utah Warriors. They have a lot of unknowns there. There's two pieces that I'm pretty sure we do know. The 9-10 combo for RFCLA is going to be over 50 caps for the Pumas, Gonzalo Bertranu at scrum half, and then test capped for two nations, rugby superstar Christian Liliafano starting at 10. They might be on the back end of their careers, but that is still some hell of a combo. Now, I think it's really tricky. These next kind of fourth, third, second spots are all going to be really, really tightly contested. I think they could go either way, but RFCLA, when push comes to shove, I have to put there, but I don't think they're going to be far behind third place. They might not even be that far behind second place. It's just going to be that tight in the West. Moving up to third in the Western Conference, I have the Seattle Seawolves. Now, this might be a controversial pick, but let me explain. The Seawolves finished just in second place in 2024. I think 2 points above the team in third. They finished with an 11-5 record, which is fantastic. They then made it all the way to the MLR final, which, when you consider how many injuries they had, is remarkable. Rickard Hatting was out for most of the year. Tackle machine Charles Elton was out for most of the year. I think Peter Malcolm was out after one game or something like that, along with a couple of other players who were out for the season pretty early on into their 2024 campaign. They still managed to make it to their fourth MLR final. So I'm never going to rule the Seawolves out completely. But let me just run you through a couple of names that they've lost in this off-season. MLR all-time top scorer Sam Windsor, who admittedly was a bit of a depth player, but he was depth player to Mac Mason, who scored 172 points in 2024 for the Seawolves. He's not returning either. You've got the likes of Joe Taufatei, who's gone over to NOLA. You've got the likes of Davita Lepetti, former Rookie of the Year, who's gone to your rivals, the San Diego Legion. Connor Mooneyham has gone to Anthem. You've lost some really, really key players. Now, they have filled those spots quite well with the likes of Rodney Iona at fly half and OJ Noah, both from the NOLA Gold. Devold Kutza from the Dallas Jackals, only player to score 5 tries in a single game. Mika Kruse from the Warriors. Like, they've picked up some really good pieces there to try and fill some of these gaps, along with a lot of returnees, such as they will have a healthy Hatting, they will have a healthy Charles Elton, they'll have a healthy Devon Short, who only played kind of the tail end of 2024. They'll have a lot of players that are going to be healthy from the off, and hopefully, fingers crossed, can stay healthy for this campaign. But I think that really they're going to take a bit of a step back this year, I think, just because of the amount of that they've lost in this off season and how close they were with third place in 2024. Now, this is just for the regular season. When they get in the playoffs, the Seagulls pretty much always deliver in the playoffs, so I'm not getting that ahead of myself. They might still win the thing. But for the regular season, I think the Seattle Seawolves will drop a place to third in the Western Conference. It took me so long to decide on second place in the Western Conference that it's now the next day. I think the San Diego Legion will be finishing second in the Western Conference in 2025. The Legion are the winningest team in Major League Rugby history. Unfortunately, they are yet to capture that ultimate prize in the Shield. But that doesn't mean they're not done trying. They have a lot of returning pieces. A lot of the core is still kind of returning to the Legion from 2024. They do have a new head coach in John Menenti, however, so that might affect things a little bit from how Danny Lee played in the previous few seasons. But the majority of the core, like many of the teams in MLR, is coming back. They don't have that much turnover, but the players that are leaving are kind of household names, not just in MLR in some cases. They're losing Matt Giteau, who seems to have finally for real this time retired now from playing. Mar Nonu, who has been a legend in so many different leagues, including for the over 100 games for the All Blacks. He's now, I think he's now with a coaching staff in the top 14 somewhere. So he might be done playing. We're not quite sure yet. They're also losing 50-time capped USA Eagle Greg Peterson, as well as Mikey Teo. So they are losing some significant pieces. But it seems to me that the Legion have really decided to go for a much younger team. A lot of these guys I mentioned that are departing are at the tail end of their careers. But I think that the Legion have done a better job in filling those big departures than the Seawolves and a lot of other teams in the West. For example, they have Richard Judd back at scrum half after a year out in Super Rugby. Judd was an All-MLR First 15 selection in 2023 during that 15-1 season the Legion had, earning 6 Team of the Week selections. He's back at scrum half. I'm sure fans and the Legion themselves are bloody happy about that. They've got Jed Holloway coming in, who's a pretty great replacement for Greg Peterson. Holloway from the Waratahs, I think. Paddy Ryan and Christian Poidovan in the back row will probably help to cover for Blair Cowan's departure, who I didn't even mention earlier, but he was a tackle machine as well during his time at the Legion. They're filling the gaps a lot better than I think a lot of other teams have done, and haven't even mentioned that the Legion have picked up former Rookie of the Year Tavite Lepetti from their rivals, which I'm sure the Legion fans are going to be very happy about. Judging by how close the Legion were to second place in 2024, they were only 2 points behind the Seawolves there. I think that the Legion have made more of an improvement than the Seattle Seawolves, despite the Seawolves having all those players returning and hopefully being healthy, and will take what is the top spot of 3 really, really kind of pretty evenly matched teams, at least on paper, in RFCLA, Seattle Seawolves, and San Diego. I think those 3 teams are going to fight for second, third, fourth, and I think this is how it's going to kind of level out at the end of the regular season, with the San Diego Legion in second place. As with my Eastern Conference video, the smarter among you have probably already worked out who that means I have in first place in the Western Conference, and that is the Houston Sabercats. Similar to my argument for the New England Free Jacks, to be honest, the Sabercats are sort of the team to beat in the Western Conference, at least during the regular season. The Sabercats haven't really given me any reason to doubt that they could do it for a second year in a row. They have pretty much the entire team that went 14-2 last season returning for 2025. They have a remarkably low turnover. They have, I think, really one major departure in Christian Dyer, who's gone to RFCLA. Possibly Carlo Denison, who's gone to Anthem for this season, but then they replaced Denison with Juan de Oliver from the Dallas Jackals in 2024, who actually was quite pivotal for the Jackals in knocking the Sabercats out in 2024. The Sabercats were pretty much, well, as proven by their 14-2 record, nearly unstoppable in 2024. They have a load of that team returning, other than their 2024 squad being a year older, which I don't really think is really any argument at all. There isn't really any reason for me to doubt that this team won't operate at that same high level. Now, Henneke Meyer is not there this season after turning the Sabercats around pretty much completely, turning them from a bottom dweller into a real contender, at least in the regular season. Pote Human is still there as head coach, so that consistency will remain despite, we might see exactly how much impact Meyer had on the day-to-day. But even if this Houston team take a step back and win 2 less games, that's still a 12-4 record, and it will depend how they perform against the likes of the San Diego Legion and the Seattle Seawolves, but I really think the Western Conference is Houston's for the taking for a second season in a row. Now, we will have to see what happens in the playoffs because the Houston Sabercats have qualified for the postseason for the last 3 years in a row and are yet to pick up a victory. But in the regular season, I think the Western Conference is Houston's for the taking in 2025. So that does it for my Western Conference predictions for the 2025 Major League Rugby season. Feel free to let me know if I'm absolutely spot on in the comments or if I'm a big dummy stupid head. You can tell me that too. We'll probably revisit these at the end of the regular season just to see how wrong I was or how right. You never know. But if you like this video, please leave a like. Please consider subscribing. I do make video content, but it's pretty infrequent. Let me know if you guys like this kind of style, just kind of me riffing, to be honest. And if you want to stay up to date with more of what I do, you can feel free to follow me on social medias. I'm sure they're probably floating around my head. And if you want to get your hands on some MLR merch, such as this beautiful jersey from the Dallas Jackals in 2024, feel free to visit shopmlr.com and use the code MLRStats at checkout for 15% off your order. Thank you very much for watching and looking forward to the season to finally kick off in, as of recording, under 24 hours.